Hello, I'm Brian Hand, one of the transformational healthcare coaches here at UC San Diego Health. Today, I would like to share with you how to craft the perfect problem statement. There are really two learning objectives. The first one is to have the knowledge to understand how to describe the essential components of a strong problem statement. And then number two is applying that knowledge and developing the skills to be able to develop a clear and focused problem statement using a structured approach. As many of us have done in the past, we've jumped to solutions. What this typically leads to is unsolved problems or problems that resurface and become even more challenging to deal with. So a clear problem statement keeps everyone focused. In fact, it helps teams to understand what they're trying to solve and why it matters. As I have just shared, jumping to quick solutions can lead to confusion, wasted effort, and missed opportunities. Albert Einstein once said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution. So what he's saying here is he would take almost all of his time to really understand the problem and create that problem statement, and just a short amount of time coming up with his solutions to solve the problem. So in order to create and craft clear problem statements, we've come up with an acronym called MUST, and it's really a recipe to help us systematically walk through 4 key things to be able to craft that perfect problem statement. So before you solve it, you must define it. Before you define it, though, you need to ask yourself, do I have a standard? So most process-related problems that have no standard really need to start with defining a standard or creating a standard. If you have that standard in place, then we need to walk through and solve the problem using this methodology. The first step would be to ensure that it's measurable. And so in order to do this, we need to make sure that we have data and evidence to define that problem. Also, we need to describe the current situation and what is the difference between our current state and the desired state. This is oftentimes truly the problem, is that gap or that delta between our current state and where we want to be. Number 2, urgent. We need to make sure in crafting a very good problem statement that we can show that it needs attention now. Solving this problem needs to happen now, and if not, it can lead to other problems. This is really important because oftentimes we have many different problems that we are encountering, and we need to figure out which one do we focus on now and prioritize, and this will help us to do that. Also, we need to specify how long and how often does this problem occur or has been occurring, and perhaps explain how solving the problem will benefit the customer or your business. Number 3, specific. We need to make sure we clearly define the issue and its scope using plain language that's accessible to all people. We need to also focus on one aspect that needs improvement. And lastly, tangible. Is the problem real? Have we observed it ourselves? Is it grounded in facts? So make sure that you confirm these things, and also confirm that this problem that you need to solve is manageable and within the scope of the team's control. A few problem statement traps to be aware of. Let's walk through these and make sure we do not get into these traps. Number 1, we don't understand the situation at hand. We haven't, in fact, seen this for ourselves. We hear of this through hearsay or others that there's this problem. The next one, we have not spoken with the process owners, the people that are actually in that process, that run that process, to get their insights. They oftentimes know the ins and outs and can share a great amount of details as to why this problem is occurring. The next one, the problem statement is designed to fit a solution. Oftentimes, we have solutions in mind and we're trying to create a problem statement to fit that solution. That's a trap. Or it has a countermeasure already built into the problem statement. The other thing we need to be aware of as we create our problem statements is that we want to make sure we don't have multiple problems twisted together. And oftentimes we can figure this out by having someone else read back our problem statement. And they'll see, perhaps, if they're not as close to this problem, that you may have 2 or 3 problems that you're really dealing with, but we need to figure out what's that one problem we need to solve. And perhaps we need to take this approach for 3 separate problems. So detangle that problem statement into 3 separate ones. Also, perhaps the problem is too large to tackle. That can be a trap to fall into. It's so large that we will not be successful in solving this. Or the problem is too vague and cannot be quantified. And lastly, it's focused on people, not process. So let's put our learning to work. Now, taking out that tip card or that recipe card, our MUST acronym, let's take a look at 2 statements and ask ourselves, are these good or bad problem statements? Let's take a look at the first one. Fast Print and Photo needs to improve the software of the 4 printers because employees are not motivated and do not come to work regularly, and something needs to eventually change. Is this a good or bad problem statement? Well, let's take out our MUST recipe card and kind of go through. Is it measurable? Not really. There's really no measures to anchor around. Is it urgent? Well, we see that there's some issues going on, but really doesn't demonstrate the urgency that we would have expected in a good, well-crafted problem statement. And next, is it specific? Not really. We don't even have a time frame when this problem's occurring. And is it tangible? Is it within the scope of the team to solve? Perhaps not really. Again, it's so nebulous, we really don't understand this problem. So is it a good or bad example? Correct. It's a bad example. Let's take a look at one more. Fast Print and Photo employees call-out rate is 4% higher than the national average of 5% for the months of May through July of 2025, negatively impacting turnaround time of same-day printing in-store services. So the question is this a good or bad example? Again, going back to the recipe card, is it measurable? Clearly it is. This problem is clearly measurable. We have 5% higher than the national average of, 4% higher than the national average of 5% from the months of May through July. So it's very specific. It also demonstrates that there's some impact on the customer or business. And lastly, it's not pointing the finger at people. It's really focusing in on some process-related process that we need to go ahead and address. So the question, is this a good or bad example? I agree. It's a pretty good example. So let's quickly summarize our MUST card. So again, measurable, urgent, specific, and tangible. Some of the benefits to using this card as we create our own problem statements is that this tool helps us to create that sharp, focused problem statement by giving us that framework or that guidance. Number 2, it builds that discipline. It's important to be able to go through this acronym to ensure that we build a clear and strong problem statement, that we don't go down that road and fall into the traps that I covered earlier. And lastly, it aligns the team quickly by clearly defining a real problem that needs to be solved. I just want to thank you for your time and attention, and hopefully this has been helpful, and you can apply this new knowledge as you create and craft your problem statements. For additional information and additional resources, please go to the Transformation Healthcare whole site. Thank you, and have a great afternoon.